don't need to go any further.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rattle reporting. Cuban prisoners have seized more hostages in Atlanta. Military specialists have been called to the scene. President Reagan now is described as, quote, very concerned about the sustained terror by Cubans inside the prison in Atlanta and a detention center in Louisiana. Bill Whitaker leads our coverage of the Cuban takeovers.
Rioting Cuban inmates have free reign of almost the entire Atlanta penitentiary complex tonight. They stormed the prison hospital early this morning and seized another 25 hostages. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has dispatched an undisclosed number of military advisors and special riot troops to Atlanta.
We will take no invasive action against the detainees unless some steps are taken to harm the hostages.
94 hostages are now in inmate hands. The inmates called for television cameras to prove the captives are being well treated.
We'd like to get out, but that's just natural. It's not because we've been being mistreated.
The inmates issued a new list of demands, including a demand for U.S. citizenship. They say they're willing to die for it.
How long are you going to hold out?
As long as necessary, because on this depends our freedom.
Prison authorities have complained of divided leadership among the Cubans, as if to underscore that, just as one group seized hostages from the hospital, another faction released 5 hostages as a goodwill gesture.
They never harassed us one bit.
200 Cubans have surrendered to authorities. Still, negotiations here are continuing. Both sides insist they want a peaceful resolution. At the Oakdale facility in Louisiana, negotiators are making limited progress.
I think that we're talking in terms of a moratorium and review of the cases, and also no prosecution for any of the violence that has taken place at the prison.
43 Cubans have surrendered to authorities at Oakdale. Inmates still hold 28 captives.
Every day since this thing started, there have been threats to the hostages.
What was their
Well, either to injure, burn, kill, whatever.
The Cubans are suspicious of Attorney General Edwin Misa's offer to review each case. They reject Cuba's offer of amnesty. So tonight, in Louisiana and Atlanta, the standoffs continue with no end in sight. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Atlanta.
Early this morning, behind Cuban barricades inside the Atlanta penitentiary, hostage Douglas Howington was allowed to speak.
Well, there are times when I get a little afraid, but once I'm around these guys, most of these guys I know I'm not afraid of them.
A face behind the bars, a sigh of relief in Brooklyn, New York, where his family learned he was still alive.
And I'm praying for him, and I just love him.
And especially when I saw him this morning, that gave me a lot of comfort.
For the families of the hostages, the Cuban takeover at the Atlanta prison has been a never-ending nightmare. There was the anguish during Monday's fires, not knowing if your father was dead or alive.
Only thing I could think of, oh God, my daddy's in the fire. That's all. I was just thinking about pain, burns.
Ariel's father, Roosevelt Aki, is among 94 hostages at the prison. Today, the family had new fears when they learned from news reports that special riot troops may be on the way to Atlanta.
The Cubans get wind of that the government's going to send down these military groups or whatever. They may get edgy and jump and begin to shoot.
My father's such a good man. What a way to go.
In the small town of Noonan, Georgia, one of their own, Bruce Green, is being held by the Cubans.
Like you can see, it's out in the country, and all we really have is each other out here, so, man, we're all real close.
You get a glimmer of hope in there, and then all of a sudden it seems to fade away.
Bruce Green has a 3-year-old son. His wife tries to contain her fear.
Then he's not going to be able to get out and come home.
But you still have some hope, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Plenty of hope. God.
Family and friends of hostages try to comfort each other, but the fear remains that they may never see their loved ones again. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Atlanta.
This dilemma involving these Cuban prisoners has its roots in a generous impulse by the American people. But what started as a freedom flotilla exploded over the weekend into death, arson, and hostage terror. Bruce Morton looks at how that happened and what may lie ahead.
We, as a nation, have always had our arms open to receiving refugees.
President Carter was talking about the Mariel boat lift refugees, but it didn't work out that way. The president changed his tune.
Castro has taken hardened criminals out of prison and forced some of the boat owners who have gone to Cuba from our country to bring these criminals back to the United States.
In fact, Fidel Castro flooded the United States with Mariel refugees. The U.S. put them in camps, tried to check them out, but had no way to send them back. Most, of course, settled in and prospered. About 95,000 have applied for permanent resident status. About 20,000 are unaccounted for. About 3,000 committed crimes here and did time for them. They're out now, on parole or in halfway houses. About 3,800 are serving time now. But the problem is with another 3,800. 210 who were locked up as soon as they got here. Others who finished their sentences after committing crimes but were detained because the government thought they were dangerous and because the court said the government could hold them as long as it wanted. They have no legal status here.
Unless Congress would pass a law that allowed them to stay, the law as it exists presently would not allow those people to ever have any status in this country.
Critics say yes, but the detainees were a problem bound to explode one day.
The riots are a direct consequence of the failure of due process. The riots are a direct consequence of the failure of fairness.
Now the administration is offering a case-by-case review. But some of the detainees have been in prison so long, it may be hard to get them to believe such offers.
This whole thing has been handled in so arbitrary and careless a way, no wonder they don't accept the word of the government.
So the problem may be finding an approach the Marielitos, who have reason to distrust almost everyone, will actually believe. Dan?
Thank you, Bruce. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving. The criminal element is very much a minority among the overall Cuban refugee population, but a majority of that minority roams the streets of the United States tonight. Jerry Bowen reports on that.
The survival of the fittest, and we've got the fittest that survived here. They survived the Cuban prisons, they survived the boat lift, and they survived the streets here.
Detectives Mark Fleischman and Manny Mata, part of the special detail tracking Cuban crime, surveyed the usual hangouts in Los Angeles, but this night they came up virtually empty. Came across just one Marielito criminal, a common street thief who gave up his concealed weapon, a razor blade, and then faded into the city's concrete background.
He says, I am not a good guy, but I've never done anything that will get me in Atlanta.
Criminals made up a minority of the Mario boatlift people who fled Cuba in 1980, but they were and continue to be a violent minority, and most are not in federal or state detention. They're trademarked murder of enemies, of crime witnesses, of the man whose dog barked at the wrong person.
The Marielito responded by stabbing the owner of the dog 17 times.
Los Angeles police have a mugshot book devoted to the Marielitos, one-time Cuban prison inmates continuing a life of crime here. Detectives estimate there are 2,500 such criminals in this city alone. Thousands more in the areas of Union City, New Jersey, Miami, and Las Vegas, where Marielito gangs are involved in illegal drugs. Police say Marielito criminals still on the street are the best of the worst.
We're talking about a more sophisticated criminal than those that are incarcerated. Mostly narcotics dealers, more of an organized criminal.
And if the suddenly quiet Los Angeles streets are any indication, some Marielito crime figures are also afraid, have gone underground, say police, out of fear that arrest and conviction could put them on the list for Cuba. And Cuba and its prisons are the last place they want to see. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
One of the nation's best-known big city mayors died today, Chicago Mayor Harold Washington. Heart attack. Frank Courier reports on the life and death of Chicago's first black mayor, the man who beat the old Chicago political machine.
This morning, Mayor Washington had hosted a groundbreaking ceremony on a new housing project. Appearing fit, though privately he had complained of respiratory problems. Only hours later, paramedics were rushing the 65-year-old mayor to a hospital after he had slumped under his desk unconscious during a city hall meeting.
He was in full cardiac arrest is the only information that I have.
A large and emotional crowd waited outside the emergency entrance, where inside 3 cardiac teams worked with a heart-lung machine for more than 2 hours, but failed to revive him.
I'm Alton Miller, the Mayor's Press Secretary, and it's my sad responsibility to let you know that Mayor Washington was pronounced dead this afternoon at 1:36.
Harold Washington was one of the nation's most prominent black politicians and one of the first black mayors of a major city. His sudden death sent shockwaves through the community.
Real sad, real sad. We lost a great mayor.
It's just shock.
I was in the other building.
My favorite hero, what can I tell you?
With 96% of the black vote last April, he emerged the first man to win re-election since former political boss Richard Daley, who died 11 years ago in his 6th term. After a bitter and racially divisive campaign 5 years ago, Washington spent his first 4 years in office battling political foes like Alderman Ed Vrdoliak, whose bloc of white supporters in council tried to grab control of city government.
When will you recognize this?
You're out of order, Mr. Doyle.
When will you this whole procedure is out of order the way you're conducting that
But
chair?
the council wars ended, and a triumphant Washington declared the legendary political machine here dead.
Just as we are finally able to leave a local petty political bickering behind us, the new spirit of Chicago is aroused to greater trials.
For now, Vice Mayor David Orr, a white alderman and former history professor, will succeed Washington as interim chief executive.
This city has lost a very good friend and a great mayor, and we are asking everybody in the city to pull together in this very difficult time.
Funeral arrangements are pending, and political experts are predicting a complex and stormy transition of power.
There is no Prince of Wales. There isn't a designated person who Harold Washington deemed to be his successor. That's one really critical issue.
Today, a political power at Chicago City Hall has passed. Harold Washington, the man who had hoped to be remembered as one mayor who stood up to the Democratic machine.
It's been a long day, big boy. Feel like you still got something left? Sure you do. 'Cause you got one smart mama, and she got you off the ground this morning with a real winner. Howdy ho, wheat, time to gloat. 'Cause you don't wear no sugar coat. You just can't beat that pure whole wheat. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
I switched to Fleischmann's after Ed's last checkup.
Heart disease. My cholesterol test said it was a real possibility. So Doc suggested a sensible diet.
Turns out a diet low in fat and cholesterol with foods like Fleischmann's with no cholesterol can help lower Ed's cholesterol level. That's one way to help make his heart healthier.
Took the test again last week. I'm down 10 points.
Oh, and that does my heart good, too.
Fleischmann's, part of a head start to a healthier heart.
Peace and quiet are not part of this job. Headaches are. I used to take aspirin or Tylenol, but today I take Advil. Advil gets rid of my headaches, and it's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
At least one Arab guerrilla staged a daring airborne raid inside Israel tonight. Israeli military sources say he flew across the border from Lebanon in a light aircraft and attacked an army post. He reportedly killed 6 Israeli soldiers before he was shot dead. Secretary of State Schultz flew home tonight with his deal finally done. Now he has to try to sell it. He said NATO allies are delighted with the proposed final U.S.-Soviet arms treaty to remove more than 1,000 nuclear missiles from Europe. The White House correspondent Bill Platt reports that's nothing compared to what President Reagan faces trying to sell this treaty to some members of his own party.
President Reagan interrupted his California holiday for a briefing by top aides on the final shape of the U.S.-Soviet arms deal and potential problems with its ratification. White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker says he's confident the administration can head off a threatened revolt by Senate conservatives.
I think the content of this treaty will be so attractive. I think its merit will be so great. I think the verification package will be so complete and convincing. I think that the treaty will be ratified by the Senate.
But there are complications. The debate on ratification of the treaty will come just as the presidential primaries are getting underway. And candidate Bob Dole, who as Senate Minority Leader would normally be the administration's point man, instead sees the treaty as a campaign issue to use against George Bush.
I have a difference there with the vice president. He's been out cheerleading for this treaty even before it was agreed upon, saying what a great thing it was. I don't think he's read it.
What's more, many conservative Republicans don't yet accept administration assurances that the treaty is foolproof.
Maybe I wouldn't be so skeptical of it if I were assured of just what precautions are being made with respect to verification. I think these are real questions.
The Secretary of State insists there are good answers to those questions.
It's a good thing. Good for the United States, good for the alliance. So it'll be ratified.
For now, the White House is answering critics of the treaty patiently, saying the president was once skeptical too. But the hard sell is coming, because Ronald Reagan does not want to see liberal Democrats Kennedy and Cranston leading the fight in the Senate for this treaty, while his own conservative supporters line up to campaign against it. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in Santa Barbara.
The UN Security Council today demanded that South Africa pull its troops out of Angola. The United States joined that unanimous vote, but emphasized the U.S. also wants Cuban troops out of the strategic African nation. Angola has been at war since it won independence from Portugal in 1975, a war that has swelled with the influx of foreign troops and lethal aid from both superpowers. From Johannesburg, Doug Tennell narrates our report.
On an assault course in the African bush, young recruits train for a war in which South Africa and the United States share a highly visible common cause: support for these guerrillas on a remote battlefield. The country? Angola. The enemy? Angola's Marxist government, backed by the Soviet Union and 37,000 Cuban troops. The guerrillas? From UNITA, backed by both South Africa and the United States. The Soviet Union's massive military support for Angolan troops has brought these pro-Western UNITA rebels an estimated $32 million of covert American military aid in the last 2 years. Aid that UNITA's leader Jonas Savimbi says makes all the difference.
In 1985, we did not have the support of the Americans. Now we have that support, and they are playing a decisive role here.
The rebels have received anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles from the United States.
Certainly, it is not that much different from the American policy, the Reagan doctrine of countering that type of influence, for instance, by assisting the Contras.
For South Africa's government, these rebels are a frontline force, not only against communism, but also against radical black nationalism that threatens white South Africa's regime.
We don't see, as I said, that there can be a military victory or solution for either side.
So America is offering the carrot, a negotiated settlement in Angola, while South Africa wields the stick. Its army has recently intervened directly and clashed with Angolan troops in the current round of fighting. With South Africa and the United States as allies, UNITA is holding its own. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Johannesburg.
And still to come tonight on the CBS Evening News, correspondent Richard Schlesinger on why mom and pop power is in trouble in Vermont. And David Browning on turkeys. 240 million turkeys.
The stars are gonna twinkle and shine. How they'll shine this evening about 9:15. I know I won't be late. Oh, that 8:30. I'm gonna hurry there. I'll be waiting where
They say time is what you make it. At Citizen, we prefer making it beautiful.
about 8:45.
Citizen.
Headache, pressure, and congestion, all together major symptoms of sinus complex. You need to feel better, but not drowsy. You need Sinutab 2 no drowsiness formula, so you feel altogether better and awake.
I was a real worrywart about my sales figures. Hello. Yeah, hi. How'd sales go today? It looks good to me. Then AT&T came through with Watts data transmission. They designed a system using my Watts lines to collect data automatically from my stores all over the country. Now that my sales figures come with my morning coffee, I can concentrate on what's important. And so can everyone else.
From equipment to networking, from computers to communications, AT&T is the right choice.
When you take Tums, you're getting an extra-strength heartburn medicine. It's a lot stronger than the number 2 brand. That's good. But Carol tells me Tums also gives us extra calcium. That's even better.
The Food and Drug Administration today approved human trials for a second AIDS vaccine candidate. This one will be tested for an unspecified length of time on some 50 to 60 healthy male homosexual volunteers. New controversy today over a $5 billion nuclear power plant, and CBS News correspondent Richard Schlesinger looks at a little-known aspect of federal electric power politics, the rise and fall of mom and pop utilities providing power to the people.
Should I turn it on? In the late 70s, the federal government thought people like George Butler could help liberate America from dependence on Arab oil. It encouraged them to harness America's rivers and streams and produce hydropower. We're in business. Butler is a retired minister who taught himself how to build a small power plant in his backyard.
I have generated a total of over 212,000 kilowatt hours, which paid for itself.
Right here in your backyard?
In the backyard.
To encourage people like George Butler, Congress required large utility companies to buy the electricity produced in small plants at rates set by the state. Soon, Vermont and other states were dotted with small plants tucked along rivers and deep inside mountain gorges. It all worked well until oil prices plummeted and energy became cheap.
We started seeing that because the market shifted, that we could get less expensive priced energy from other sources, and it was putting the ratepayers into a bind if we didn't make decisions quickly.
The decision the state made to pay less for power put the small power producers in a bind. Once embraced as Vermont's answer to the energy crunch, they became victims of the volatile international oil market.
When Simon Pierce refurbished this old waterfall and built a small power plant, he says the state did everything it could to encourage him. His licenses were approved quickly and he began generating power. But that was in 1983. Today, Pierce says, the rules have changed.
It seems that they've just done a total about-face from thinking it was a good idea, let's develop what we've got, to let's kill it.
Pierce owns a glass-blowing business and 4 years ago invested $700,000 in the power plant. Since then, the state has cut the price Pierce can get for his power by 40%.
The state is a fickle lover.
Jay Boeri built his plant with his own hands. Now he's not sure he can afford to keep selling power. Like many small power producers, he believes it is short-sighted to endanger these plants, especially while the Middle East remains in turmoil. But the state argues Vermont's waterfalls and rivers will always be there.
If an oil embargo occurs or oil crises occur, we can turn around relatively quickly and have a number of projects online.
Tarrant believes if energy prices rise again, there will be people willing to take the risk. But several of Vermont's backyard utility owners now say they never would have gotten into the business if they knew then what they know now. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Quechee, Vermont.
The Commerce Department today reported that personal income of Americans jumped 1.7% in October. That matched the biggest monthly gain in 12 years.
I can't marry you.
Why? I'm only 6 years younger.
Oh, I don't care about that.
What do you care about? My hair? My tie?
Your breakfast.
This?
Yeah, it's old-fashioned.
Hey, I'm an old guy.
All those years of sugar and preservatives.
You're right.
Nutri-Grain whole wheat flakes. No sugar added, no preservatives.
That's good. Now will you marry me?
I thought you were 5 years younger.
Dedicated to the ones we love.
An important message on heart attacks from the makers of Bufferin.
After 2 heart attacks and bypass surgery, I knew my life had to change direction. So I follow my doctor's advice. I'm on a regimen that includes a healthy diet, weight control, regular exercise, and taking aspirin every day.
If you've had a heart attack, only your doctor knows what's best for you. So follow his advice.
I did, and now I'm enjoying life.
Over the years, a flashlight goes through a lot of batteries. But the rechargeable flashlight from First Alert never needs batteries, and it's always ready to shine. Get the rechargeable flashlight from First Alert and quit throwing your money down the tube.
We love visiting America.
Hot chili, barbecued ribs, corn fritters.
But it's jolly good you have kaopectate.
Nothing relieves diarrhea and calms cramps faster than kaopectate tablet formula.
Kaopectate.
The diarrhea specialist.
All right, on this Thanksgiving Eve, let's talk turkey. Talk is cheap. This year, so is turkey. That story with all the trimmings from David Browning.
And now a word on behalf of turkeys, that most maligned of birds. Oh, sure, they get honored at the White House once a year. But then look what happens. Carved up on television, paraded before the public like so many slices of meat.
Wow, turkey!
And the public is buying it. Turkey consumption has been rising steadily in the last few years, not just at Thanksgiving, but year-round.
Turkey is lowest in fat and highest in protein of any other meat.
And to meet the demand, the nation's turkey farms now grow 240 million a year, one for every man, woman, and child in the country. A thought you can use to sober up Uncle Charlie tomorrow. The result has been turkey glut in the nation's supermarkets, stores practically giving them away.
At that price, how can you lose?
Little turkey war.
I like it personally. I could eat it 365 days a year.
Please don't, say animal rights activists. They argue that turkeys are sweet, caring creatures and urge you to take one home as a pet instead of a butterball.
Giving thanks to life while we slay 40 million turkeys for Thanksgiving. This we feel is somewhat strange.
Even turkey farmers admit it's easy to get attached to the birds.
You really do. You really do. As bad as they smell, you really do.
But business is business. This batch will survive Thanksgiving, but in a week or two, they'll be at a market near you, and the turkey lobby would like you to consider turkey meatball soup, turkey enchiladas, stuffed turkey thighs Florentine. Enjoy. David Browning, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, I hope yours is a good Thanksgiving. Good night.
When your coffee's smooth and easy, like Sunday morning, and it tastes your way.
It's necessarily Nescafe, great coffee blends to change the way. That's necessarily Nescafe.
Finding a breakfast cereal with calcium can be a real mystery. You won't uncover calcium in cornflakes or in shredded wheat. The place to look is Total. 100% of 9 vitamins and a major source of calcium.
If they could see you now out on a fun-ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3-hour, 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
This is CBS.
Just ahead on Eyewitness News, some Nashvillians will not be able to have Thanksgiving at home tomorrow. They lost their homes to fire today. Nashville has a new district attorney. We'll tell you about his plans for that office. Also, some last-minute efforts to save a bowling